The Cryptid Hunter. The first thing I learned about cryptids was how easy it is to believe in them when you're out in the field. When you're alone and all that surrounds you is the wilderness, you begin to think anything is possible. And when you're a researcher tracking down the unexplainable, you come to expect the unexpected. But what I found in the Blackthorn Forest, what we all found, was beyond anything I could have ever imagined. I'll never forget the night we stumbled upon it. The thing that would haunt us forever. I had been hunting this cryptid for months. The Blackthorn beast, an ancient creature that supposedly haunted the deepest parts of Blackthorn Forest. Its existence was as much a myth as it was a whispered rumor. No one who had ventured into the forest had ever returned, and those who had were often too shaken to talk. The reports were vague, but the common thread was always the same. Something large, something dangerous, something primal. I wasn't afraid of the dark corners of the world. I was a researcher, a man of logic, science, and reason. Cryptids weren't just folklore to me. They were mysteries waiting to be solved. So when I found an old map, weathered and frayed, that led to a hidden part of the forest where no human had set foot in decades, I couldn't resist. I was going to find the Blackthorn beast, whether it wanted to be found or not. I packed my gear, hired a guide, Tommy Zrinya, a local tracker who had lived in the area his whole life, and headed into the forest. The first few days were uneventful. We trekked deeper into the heart of Blackthorn, the air thick with humidity and the scent of decaying leaves. Tommy was quiet, a man of few words, but I could see the unease in his eyes. He wasn't scared, no. He was too tough for that. But he wasn't comfortable either. And neither was I. There was something in the air here. Something wrong. By the fourth night, things started to change. We set up camp at the base of a cliff, the stars barely visible through the thick canopy above. The forest was alive with sound, an orchestra of rustling leaves, distant calls from nocturnal creatures, and the soft chirps of insects. But as we settled in for the night, something shifted. At first, it was subtle, a breeze that hadn't been there before, brushing against the trees. Then, a low growl, distant but unmistakable, rumbled through the darkness. Tommy stiffened at the sound, his hand instinctively reaching for his rifle. But I heard something else, too. A faint tapping, rhythmic, almost like footsteps. "Did you hear that?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Tommy didn't respond immediately. He just stared out into the dark, his eyes narrowed. Then, in a low voice, he said, "We're not alone out here." I didn't need him to elaborate. I could feel it, the weight of something unseen, something watching us. The hairs on the back of my neck stood on end. "We should move," Tommy said, his voice strained. But before we could even pack up, it came again. The growl, much closer this time, followed by a loud crash, like something heavy had fallen through the underbrush. Tommy grabbed my arm. "Get your gear, now." We moved quickly, but as I turned to follow him, I saw something in the darkness, a massive, hulking shape just beyond the campfire's reach. It stood upright like a man, but it was far too large. Its silhouette was monstrous, with long arms and a distorted, hunched back. The shape seemed to flicker in the firelight, its features too blurred to make out. But one thing was clear. It was not human. "Run!" Tommy shouted. We broke into a sprint, crashing through the trees, our breath ragged, our feet stumbling over roots and rocks. Behind us, the growls grew louder, closer, almost like they were coming from all directions. The ground seemed to shake with the sound of something massive moving through the forest. I glanced over my shoulder once and saw it, its eyes glowing faintly in the darkness, reflecting the light of the fire as it followed us. We didn't stop running until we reached the edge of a small clearing. Panting, I looked back, half expecting the creature to pounce. But there was nothing, just the eerie silence of the forest. "We need to get to higher ground," Tommy said, his voice hoarse. "There's something in these woods, something worse than we thought." We were both shaking, but I couldn't decide if it was from the cold or the terror that gripped me. There was something in the forest, something ancient, and it was hunting us. As the night wore on, we pushed forward, moving cautiously, our senses heightened. And then we found it, the den. It was a cave-like structure carved into the side of a rocky hill. The entrance was hidden behind thick vines, but once we stepped inside, it became clear that it had been used before. There were signs of habitation, broken branches, scraped marks on the walls, and the unmistakable stench of something decaying. But that wasn't what made my blood run cold. What made me freeze in place was the sight of bones, human bones, scattered across the floor of the cave. Some were gnawed, others crushed. And then I saw something else, a set of footprints, large, deep impressions that led further into the darkness. Tommy and I exchanged a look. Neither of us spoke, but we both understood. We weren't alone. Whatever had been hunting us was here. We ventured deeper into the cave, the air growing thicker, the walls closing in. The silence was overwhelming, broken only by our footsteps echoing through the narrow passage. It felt like the walls themselves were alive, breathing in and out with a rhythm I couldn't place. Suddenly, the growl came again, louder this time, so close that it reverberated in my bones. It was a deep, guttural sound, one that I could feel in my chest, like an animal preparing to strike. And then, the sound of something large moving through the tunnel. My heart stopped. The creature was inside the cave. Tommy cursed, pushing me forward. "Move, we need to get out of here." But it was too late. The walls of the cave seemed to shudder, and with a deafening crash, something large and heavy burst through the rock, sending chunks of stone and dirt flying. The creature's silhouette emerged from the darkness, a massive figure, its body covered in matted fur and scales, its eyes glowing with an otherworldly fire. It was a cryptid. But it wasn't just any cryptid. It was something far worse. The creature's face was a twisted mess of grotesque features, half human, half animal, with a jagged, open maw that dripped with saliva. Its arms were too long, its claws like knives, and its body was hunched, its movements erratic and unpredictable. Before we could react, the creature lunged. Tommy fired his rifle, but the bullets didn't seem to do anything. The creature's body absorbed the shots, its skin tough as leather. It swiped at Tommy, knocking him across the cave with the force of a freight train. I barely had time to react before it turned its attention to me. I stumbled backward, my heart pounding, the sheer terror paralyzing me. I had no idea what to do. The creature was too fast, too strong. Then, just as it closed in, there was a loud roar, different from the creature's growl, a roar that sent chills through my spine. And out of the darkness, something else emerged. Another cryptid, larger, more terrifying, with massive wings and a long whip-like tail. The two creatures collided with a deafening crash, their roars shaking the very walls of the cave. I didn't waste time questioning it. I ran. I ran as fast as I could. By the time I made it back, I was the only one left. And they weren't finished with us. This was just one of 24 short stories from my book, Beyond the Campsite, available worldwide on Amazon. Also, please consider subscribing to my channel for more terrifying tales coming weekly.